YouTube. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. And today we are going to investigate the nature of, I don't know what you want to call it. So we're going to be talking about redefining the idea of God. So I don't know that I have directly tackled this. I've sidestepped it. As you know, if you're a follower of my channel and you've read my books, obviously, then you know that I used to be a very religious person when I was a child and when I was a young man. In fact, I went to my first 4 years in college were spent in a Bible college, and I was studying to become a minister. My plan was to become an evangelist. I was going to be one of those guys that went around and, saved people. I was an exorcist, which turned out to be a real thing. And anyway, my belief was that there was a God. That there was a God who sat up in heaven and his son Jesus sat at his right hand. And it was, the typical monotheist confusion, because on the one hand, monotheists, they don't realize it, but they actually believe that God is in everything, which is a pantheist kind of belief. But in order to feel separate, they would say they don't believe that. They definitely believe that God was a personality, that God had an identity and an ego and a personality. In fact, God had such a huge ego that his entire creation, which is, of course, everything, in the biblical narrative, the entire creation, God created it for his own personal glory. And as such, your job was to not seek your personal glory, because then you were taking glory away from God. It sounds ridiculous when I say it now. I mean, absolutely preposterous. Because that is exactly how narcissists function. It's the exact same way narcissists function. And so for the creator of the universe, the source of all life, to have such an insecurity issue that your glory would somehow overshadow his, is preposterous to me now. It's laughable. But that is the idea of the monotheist deity, the monotheist God. I won't get into it. You want to look into it, you can watch some of my videos where I talk about it. But the idea of a monotheist God where there is one creator is an extremely new idea in human history. And it started, I can't remember the exact date, but it was either 385 or 583 BC. I think it was, I can't remember which. One of those. And it was created by polytheist people who lived in the Middle East, who went through a political crisis, and as a result of that, they destroyed all of their polytheist history and all of their polytheist religion, and they created this new monotheist religion where they focused solely on the patron god of their political entity. And his name was Jehovah. And it worked so well that the Romans adopted it. First, after trying to fight against it, they found that the people who believed in this monotheist deity were literally, they were incapable of subjugating them. Their belief in this deity was so powerful. And they realized that this was, whatever this belief was an incredibly powerful unifying force on a political level. So they adopted it, and that worked so well that Muhammad, who was watching from Arabia, saw what the Romans and the Christians were doing, and of course what the Jews had done with Jehovah, and he decided that he was going to do that as well. After first going to the Christians and the Jews and asking, hey, look, I created my own version of your God. Hey, can I be part of your club? And both the Jews and the Christians said, no, you can't be part of our club. You have to join our club. You're competing. You've got a competing product, and we can't tolerate that. And this is where you have the jihad mindset. So this is where Islam started going around doing the same thing that Christianity did, which was taking armies and converting people to their religion, which was really a way of converting them into their governmental system. And we have been living under that system since that time. So, a good 2,000 years or more. And anyway, so that idea of God, that there is a personality that you have to that you have to please, because you have to get God to accept you. So it starts from the assumption that God doesn't accept you, that God hates you literally, and that he wants to punish you eternally, unless, of course, you say the right things and adopt the right intellectual beliefs, and you reject all other kinds of thinking and all other beliefs. So this is a very challenging subject. I know personally, because I myself was raised in this. I was a very passionately devout, born-again Christian, passionately devout, and I believed, and it made sense to me, I believed that if people did not believe exactly the way that I did, that they would be punished for eternity. They wouldn't die, cease to exist, that they would be punished for eternity. And so, of course, that's why I went and tried to become an evangelist, because I wanted to save as many people as possible. So I was thinking about talking about that, the whole codependent nature of our society, and I was going to talk about how the codependent mindset is actually probably among the most difficult barriers to get past in order to interact with what we're going to talk about today, which is the quantum consciousness. So as I said in the beginning, I've been sidestepping the whole idea of God, the whole idea when people ask me, is there a source? And I sidestep it because my experience, because I tried to do it, but I feel it as well from most people, and it is very understandable. So it's not a judgment from me, but I don't like it. What most people try to do is they try to sanitize their monotheism. We've been programmed to believe that there is a God, and if you are spiritual, you believe in God, this person. Now, if you don't like many of the things that are found in the Abrahamic monotheist narrative, if you don't like the idea of hell, if you don't like the idea of being punished, if you don't like the idea of being separated, if you don't like the idea that people who don't share your religion will burn in hell, then what many people do is they try and negotiate with the narrative. So they still hold on to the idea that there's a God, but they will talk about he's an all-loving God, He accepts everybody. There are some religions, and you don't have to be a monotheist to have this mindset, but there are many religions that believe that we've got the truth about what this God is, but it's okay if you're mistaken. You can be mistaken, God still loves you. And then, of course, there's the more strict religions like the one I came from, where they say, no, you have to believe the way we believe or you will be rejected. You will either be destroyed or you will live in torture for eternity. Or, the Catholics, they couldn't tolerate that, so they created, what do they call that? The place in between heaven and hell. I forget what that's called. Purgatory, which means to purge, the place of purging. So even though they had a religion that said you have to be completely forgiven for sins by Jesus' sacrifice, they sort of pushed that aside and then created this place where you could spend hundreds of years purging your sins and then you could go to heaven, which of course is against their book. Their instructional book doesn't teach that, but they believe it anyway. So point being is that this is a very, very, very difficult mindset to break free from. In fact, once you get programmed, and it doesn't matter whether you grew up in a religious household or not, that's meaningless. I know because I've interacted with agnostics, I've interacted with atheists, I've interacted my whole life with people who weren't born in religious households, but once you start talking about spirituality, people automatically start going to God. And they tinker around with that idea, in whatever way makes them comfortable. So the truth is that the idea of there being a non-specific quantum consciousness from which all consciousness arises, sort of bubbles out of, that is actually a lot harder for the Western mindset to adopt. Many people, in fact, people can become Buddhists, they can become Hindus, they can become shamans, but they still underneath it will have this monotheist idea. They still, on an unconscious level, believe in the God, but they sanitize it and try and tweak it a little bit so that they can feel comfortable with it, especially with the belief in Jesus. I struggle with how to talk about that because I know for some people the idea of Jesus is very comforting, and I can understand that. Somebody I respect recently, an astrologer, not too long ago, it wasn't yesterday, but it was a few months ago. But I was talking with him, and I believe he had seen some of my videos, and without addressing me personally, he says, some people say that Jesus doesn't exist, and he's not a Christian. And he said, but he does. And I don't, of course, because he was somebody I respected, I didn't want to get into a whole discussion about it. But while I can accept the idea that the concept of Jesus is very comforting, unfortunately for me, I don't see how it's possible to remove all of the narcissistic, destructive, codependent issues associated with him, because in order to believe in Jesus, you have to believe in sin. You have to, because his whole purpose was the forgiveness of sin. So you can cherry pick what you want out of the Bible, and there's some really great things that are attributed to Jesus, which actually, as it turns out, were said by other people, but they were, they were hijacked and then given to him. The Lord's Prayer, which is actually a very powerful meditation, was a Jewish mystical prayer. But they took it, the Romans who created Christianity stole it from those Jews and they gave it to Jesus because it was very popular. There was a lot of things going on at that time. There was a lot of Jewish mystical offshoots going around that time, after, supposedly during the life of Jesus. And the Lord's Prayer is one of them. So that's one, people will hold on to that, and if you practice that, it actually does have a very powerful healing effect on the mind. Some of the quotes attributed to Jesus, like "the kingdom of God is within you," people love that. The aphorism, "God is love." But when I hear that, unfortunately, God, when we say God, we mean Jehovah. Because if you're saying God in the sense of the one creator God, unless you have done decades of work to detox yourself from the unconscious meanings of that, and I say that with the confession that I myself I am still in the process of detoxing from those things in my unconscious. I still, on an unconscious level, struggle with it, which is the reason why I had this whole, problem with my right side recently. So when people use the word God, it's very hard to escape the God of the Bible, Jehovah. Very hard to escape that. And when people talk about the love of Jesus, again, I've shared this story, I'll share it again. I was with a friend of mine that I had known years ago, and we reconnected, and he had become a Christian. In fact, I remember when he became one, and I shared my disappointment with him, and I broke off contact with him because I just didn't want to have that born-again Christian stuff going on in my ear. And I said, "I'm sorry," and I distanced myself from him. We reconnected a couple decades later, and he was in the process of detoxing himself from that. And so he was very adamant about all of the problems, the narcissism of Jehovah, the idea of sin and hell, and all of the other, crazy things associated with that cult. And we were out to dinner, and he and I were talking about it, and we were very passionate about it. And his girlfriend was sort of watching. Now, she was what many people I've seen, they're people that are born into a religion. They may not really truly understand it. They don't devour the Bible, but they'll go to church and they'll pray and they'll ask for forgiveness, and it gives them all kinds of things that spiritual paths give everybody, the general things. But they really don't think it through. Not that they should, but they don't. And so he stopped in the middle of our rant and he said, I forget her name, let's call her Mary. Mary here isn't really going to understand what we're talking about because she didn't get into it as deeply as you and I did. And she said, "That's right. I think you guys are being too harsh about it, because for some people, it's just a way for them to experience grace." And that sounds very spiritual. Grace is, love and acceptance and forgiveness and solace and freedom from negativity. That's what grace implies. But it has a deeper, more sinister meaning in the terms of Christianity specifically. And I responded, and I said, "But why do we need grace? Grace implies that we need to be forgiven." And I said, "We didn't do anything. We were born. That's not a sin. We don't need to be forgiven just for the fact that we exist. We don't need grace for that. And, I don't know if she understood. She obviously couldn't really respond. I mean, I said it in a kinder tone than you just heard it. But it's a toxic belief. So I'm saying all that to say to you, I'm trying to get to this idea of the quantum consciousness, and I'm sort of leading you through the experience. And I'll just give you, a little teaser. I had a direct experience with the quantum consciousness again today. And it was wonderful and amazing and shocking. To me, it's shocking because I've been through this detox period, and the idea of connecting to a quantum consciousness that isn't Jehovah, that isn't the God, that is something else entirely, and to have this download of intense beauty and peace and love, not associated with any religion, is a little traumatizing for my brain, because my brain wants to go to all those places. So what I have to do is I have to redefine my idea. And as I said earlier, I have sidestepped the whole idea of God because the mines, the traps, the pitfalls that come when people fall back on the idea of God in a codependent victim mentality way, I respond negatively to that. I don't want to co-sign that. Because maybe I'm willing to change this, but I personally don't like the idea of seeking out some other consciousness without first connecting to your own soul. And maybe that's not the only way that it can be done. Maybe people can have an experience with something they perceive as outside of themselves, which of course isn't, and then they can move to connecting to their soul. I don't know. But in order to go further in my shamanic practices, I am going to have to, well, no, I don't have to do anything. Let me take that back. I don't have to do anything. I am choosing, because I believe it will be helpful for me. I am choosing to begin interacting with this quantum consciousness, which has no identification with any deity, and which I find to be completely, totally separated from the idea of Jehovah. I really do wish that we could just get rid of it. I really wish that we could purge people of anything associated with monotheism. It's a good thing I'm not in control of the universe, because that would probably destroy many people. So I will do what I believe which is healthy, and I'll focus on myself, what is right for me. Anybody wants my help, I'm more than happy to share my thoughts, my beliefs, but what other people do is absolutely none of my business. I'm trying to avoid talking about connecting with light beings, because I'm absolutely, totally focused on it. Pretty much every waking moment is focused on just the reality of it, the reality of my experiences of it. And I can't stop thinking about how to go further with that connection, and go further with everything that is implied with the reality that we are experiencing. which is that everything associated with Earth up until this point is shifting, completely shifting. And this includes all of our base assumptions, and this time I am talking about everybody. All of our base assumptions about not only ourselves, but about reality itself, not to mention what's going on in the air around us and above us. I mean, reality is not at all what we have thought. And it is a fact that is being revealed. The veil is being lifted. So let's talk about the quantum consciousness. So let me talk to you, let me get practical about it with you for a second and tell you what it is that I do to connect with it. So what I am learning to do is I'm learning to expand my experience that I've learned from connecting with the light beings. And I found that connecting directly to light beings haphazardly continuously seems to create these Dr. Manhattan experiences where I blow a fuse. You know, I will get filled with such intense energy at such high levels of vibration that, you know, my chakras are blown out of proportion and the energy, you know, and it gets very challenging to function that way. So I am learning to interact in this shamanic fashion, interacting with reality, non-physical reality. I'm learning to interact with it in ways that allow me to function better. I'm actively seeking to move past my three-dimensional limitations and get into 5D as quickly as is healthy and possible for me. But I'm realizing that I have to go, in some of these areas I have to go slowly, or I may end up in a loony bin because I can't process it. My brain can't process it. The veil, the idea of the veil between the physical and the spiritual, I'm realizing has given me some comfort, because I could have my physical experience and I could separate it with my spiritual experience. Sort of like, I think kind of the same way people use drugs, you know. They take drugs and then, you know, and then they come back and then they sober up and then they're in reality and then they use drugs. And they're two different things. If we're not talking about addicts here, obviously. But the fact of the matter is that the spiritual and the physical are no longer separated. The veil is gone. And part of the reason that people are having so much emotional and psychological upheaval right now is because your nervous system feels it. Especially people who don't have an energetic meditative practice. You probably know a lot of people that are going bonkers. You yourself might be feeling like you're going bonkers. And you can't put your finger on it. You're filled with such intense stress, and you might feel like you're going crazy. And this is why people are going off on the political agendas, which I'm now just not political. I just don't care. I happen to live in the United States, and there's a government. I mean, it's a sham. You know, the whole political thing, and there are, you know, elite leaders, and I don't care. I just don't pay attention to it. I have to use money to pay for stuff, and, you know, okay, fine. I really don't care. I wouldn't care what country I was in. I don't care. I don't care about politics. It's all a waste of time. I will never vote again for the rest of my life. At least unless I'm, you know, unless I'm forced to. I say that because if I moved back to Australia and if I were to become a citizen, which is impossible, but if I were to do that, I would have to vote because it's the law. Here in the United States, it's not the law, so I'm not going to do it. I'll never vote again. What was I talking about? So the reason why people are feeling so crazy is because the veil is gone. The only thing that is stopping every single person from listening to me right now, the only thing that is stopping you from having a direct, conscious experience with the supernatural is, at this point, the supernatural is waiting for your invitation. That's it. And that is a courtesy. The beings that exist with you right now, you're surrounded by beings on multiple dimensions. Many of them are aware of you and are very interested in interacting with you and creating a relationship and a connection with you very strongly. But they respect your boundaries. And if you are still in 3D, the 3D mindset, which says there's the physical and then there's the paranormal, the spiritual, the non-physical, I don't care what word you use. If you still have that separation between the two, you are allowed to have that right now. And I'm telling you as somebody that's been alive on this planet for almost 60 years. I'm going to be 59 in like 6 weeks. Things were different 20, 30 years ago. And I know because I busted my ass. I worked so hard to tear open the veil and go to the other side. But in order to do that, what I had to do was I had to do this stuff. I had to practice high-level energy practices that in order to experience the other side, I had to raise my energy level beyond human. And then, and only then, I would have these experiences where I would pass through the veil very briefly. And if I were able to stay in that space where I was connected to the spiritual energies on the other side of the veil, it became impossible to function in three-dimensional reality, which is why up until now, people lived in monasteries, or they lived as monks, or they lived out in the middle of the forest, because that was the only place that you could live, and if you meditated, you could stay connected to that. You had to work very hard to experience it. That's gone. That is gone. So if you're not experiencing that, and it's your choice, that is your choice. I respect and support and defend your choice. So I'm not being an evangelist here. I'm not saying you need to do anything. Please feel free to live your life as you choose. But the veil is gone, and I know that because all I have to do now is just simply think. I actually have to be careful. I actually have to make a decision. Like when I go lie down and take a nap, it was really funny. The other day I took a nap, and I specifically took a nap and chose not to do what I've been doing my whole life, which is when I go into a state of semi-sleep, I've been this whole time seeking out doing shamanic work and trying to communicate with the non-physical realm. And but now if I even begin to do that, the energies that come to me are so unbelievably powerful and so transformative that I'll wake up from my nap and I like won't even know who I am, and I'll and I have to reorient myself to reality. And it's wonderful. The energies are so powerful, but then it's like and it takes me a while to function, and I have to reorient myself. So the other day I took a nap, and I specifically chose not to do that. I'm just going to go to sleep. And when I woke up from my nap, I said to myself, I actually had to tell myself, it's okay, you didn't do anything. You didn't do any CE5, you didn't connect to anything. You don't have to reorient yourself. Because usually what ends up happening is there's 3 or 4 hours of me trying to reorient myself as my chakras and my energy centers are... and so what is now the norm for me is if I even just slightly think about my friends, they're there. If I just slightly think about energy, if I do mantras, like if I just begin to do a mantra, the amount of energy that starts flowing through me and connecting to all forms of the universe is there. It's so real. It's as if it takes less effort than for me to open my front door and walk outside. It's that available to me. And I'm not saying that because I'm anything special. I'm saying it's there for you as well. I feel quite certain that's the case. Maybe I'm projecting onto the rest of the world, but I don't think so. Because everybody who has done these practices is having the same experience as I am on their own level. And so this tells me, and this has been my feeling from these beings, that they're saying, no, time's up. We're moving into 5D. We are getting people on the bus. Get on the bus. Get on the train. Train is leaving. Woo, woo. They are actively seeking to allow people this experience. And so I'm a spiritual guy. I'm a shamanic practitioner. And I'm having a challenging time getting my mind around it. Getting my mind around the reality of what's going on in the world. In the universes. So I'm sure I'm not the only person that's having to go through an adjustment period. And I'm sure there's plenty more adjustment left to go. So, getting back to the topic. Connecting to the quantum field. So what I do is, if I choose to try and connect only with the quantum field of consciousness, and as I even say that, I can feel all this energy going. It's really, really wonderful and interesting and strange and all that good stuff. Anyway. But what I do is I imagine Earth is here, and I imagine that surrounding Earth in the entire universe. Of course, that's not true because it's also in Earth, but I have this mindset that Earth itself, Earth herself is actually seeking to connect more strongly with the quantum field. So it helps me to think of the Earth being its own little domain, and then outside of it there's this crystalline white web that maybe silver, whatever. It's crystalline in nature. Bright white light reflecting in and out of it, like a lot like lightning. And this quantum web, crystalline web, goes out through the entire universe to all conscious beings, to all planets, to all dimensions. Dark matter, light matter, planets, asteroids, stars, beings, animals, rocks, atoms. There's this quantum field of energy that is completely conscious and is fueled by intense love. And so what I do is I imagine my crown chakra somehow reaching out and connecting with it, sort of like Avatar. You know how they like take their tail or whatever, and the filaments connect, kind of like that. So that's what I've been doing, and I've been doing that on a conscious level, because I in my mind I'm thinking that's what these beings do, because this is what's going on in my mind. In my mind this whole time, now that I've experienced physically and I've seen and felt and seen, perceived unequivocally, unmistakably, that there are beings that are of another dimension that interact with ours and can, and do things that, are impossible to do, which proves, their Dr. Manhattan type of existence. My thought is, how can I do that? I want to do that. I want to learn how to do that. So, it's great that I reach out to them and I get these downloads of energy. But if I don't do anything with that energy, I don't know that it'll accomplish anything. It's kind of wasteful. And if I was teaching somebody, as I do, when I teach people energy practices, they have to go and practice. Even if I'm putting energy into them, which is an important part of training, having the teacher put energy into you. Even if I'm putting energy into them, they still have to go and take that energy I put into them and practice the techniques. So I'm assuming that these beings have a direct connection to this quantum field of consciousness. And so I've decided, I want to be a good student. I want to try and do what you do. And to my absolute shock and surprise, it's been incredibly easy. It's been, all I do is I just begin to think about it. And as long as I'm committed to that thought, I will feel this rush of energy. And today I did it, and I did it while I was chanting my mantra, and the energy came directly into me, and I had a very hard time continuing with the mantra because I was laughing. I was giddy. I was drunk on it. I couldn't say the whole mantra because I kept laughing. And it's just amazing to me. That's never been the case. I've had to work and do, I've had to work hard to connect to life force energy, and to get a strong experience of other beings and deities. I've had to work hard. So it makes me wonder what's going to happen with, all of these technologies we've been learning. In mantra science, usually, the basic is you have to do 125,000 repetitions of a mantra just to get the deity to notice you and to, give you their influence. I think all that stuff's going away. I think we will be able, not be necessarily because we're doing anything, but simply because the 5D is literally making its way into our reality. And these beings, I've been like saying, okay guys, I need a break. Give me some space. Because they're right there, just waiting for me to, even when I start to think about, I think maybe I want to reach out, they're just right there. I don't know, maybe your experience is different. I don't think I'm anything special. I think this is true, potentially true with everybody. So if you haven't experienced that yet, there could be a couple of things going on. One is they're there and you're just not paying attention for whatever reason, which is kind of dangerous, because if you keep pushing and you're not experiencing, they'll give you a big experience which will force you to go through a challenging experience. So I encourage all of you to, if you're having trouble, to relax. don't have any expectations on what the experience will be. And then you'll be more attuned to them being subtle, because if they push too hard, they'll fry circuits. They'll fry your circuits, and they don't want to fry your circuits, or they'll frighten you. They don't want to frighten you. And if you haven't done it, when you're ready to have the experience that there is no such thing as the veil between the spiritual and the physical anymore, when you're ready to have that be your waking just reality, then the only thing that's stopping you is just asking. And this whole CE5 protocol, I believe, is for our benefit. They don't need it. The way Dr. Greer describes it, he made it sound as though they need you to direct them to where you are. Otherwise, they can't find you. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think that the moment that your attention goes to connect with them, that, all of their screens are lighting up and they know exactly where you are. And once they've connected with you energetically, if you're lucky enough, of course, I seek this out. A lot of people don't. They just want to see the light show, which is fine. Nobody has to be like me. But when you get an energetic download, you're connected to them. They can feel you, you can feel them. I have this experience, which I don't know what it is or how it is, but I have this experience that I can tell when they're thinking about me. When they're wanting to connect with me, I start to feel it. So I'm pretty sure that when I start thinking seriously about wanting to connect with them, they're already here. The moment that I go into meditation, it's like instantaneous. There they are. And the more friends that I seek out and make, the more, show up. Or so it seems. Anyway, so I'm encouraging all of you to take a look at your definition of God. And I haven't talked about it, as I said, because the whole subject has been filled with so many bear traps, and I don't want to co-sign people's codependence about taking the God of the Bible and sort of tweaking it around to make it this sort of hybrid, acceptable, sort of like taking a McDonald's hamburger and putting some chlorophyll powder on it. Oh, now it's healthy. No, it's still a McDonald's hamburger. So I've stayed away from it. But I guess what I'm saying is, now that I've had this continuing, evolving shamanic initiation, which has completely just roto-rooted my unconscious assumptions and unconscious assumptions about the universe and God and the nature of existence, that now I'm able to start investigating this idea of a quantum consciousness that is the source of all the consciousness of all beings in the universe. And the higher you go up your spiritual level, the higher you go up the spiritual ladder, the more connected you are consciously to that. Or so it seems. Having said that, I'm happy to open it up for questions and answers. This is a question and answer. If you're new to my chat, I prefer a question. If you have a question, you write the word question in all caps and then type your question out in normal script, or you share an honest feeling. If you do anything other than those two things, I will either ignore you, delete you, or I might even psychoanalyze you. So to avoid me offending you, it's good to stick with those things, because that's how I like to do things in my classroom. And I do see this as my classroom. And I see you guys as my friends and my students, but this is my classroom, and so that's how I like to do it. Anyway, maybe I'll change as time goes on. Thundra says hello, and she is one of my astrologers, certified astrologers. You can go check her out at thundra.thunderwizard.com. THUNDRA.thunderwizard.com. If you want to see all of my astrologers, you can go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. If you want to see all of my certified rune readers, you can go to runereadings.thunderwizard.com. Jedi Black Knight. Okay, that's not a question. Vincent.thunderwizard.com. All right, he is also one of my certified astrologers, and you can see on the chat all of the various services that he provides on his website, vincent.thunderwizard.com. He also has a YouTube channel. He's Gebo the Shaman. Check him out. Thundra, honest feeling. Relaxing under the stars with a campfire and listening to the coyotes in your teachings is heaven on earth. Well, what a nice thing to say. Okay, that's not a question. Again, new people, welcome to the channel. I'm glad you have opinions. I'd much prefer your questions and your honest feelings. Jedi Black Knight question, is it possible to, quote, try too hard to get the attention of the light beings? I assume you're talking about your experience. So why don't we reframe that? You know what I like? I like to know the source behind your question. I like to know the emotions behind it. You're asking about something in a general way, and if I answer that, I may not necessarily be helping you work through your challenge. So do me a favor and ask the question from what it is you are actually experiencing and what you would like to accomplish, and then I can better help you. All right, so there aren't any questions at the moment, so I'm going to do some business while you're thinking about your questions and writing them out. This is my service to the world. This is my focus, and I have clients and I have apprentices, and I have this Warrior 90-Day Challenge, which is at thunderwizard.com, my subscription site. Go check that out, because I don't even know how many hundreds of videos, like thousands of hours of videos, teaching videos, everything you can imagine, from the basics of shamanism to the mastery of shamanism to the mastery of intention and manifestation, and then of course the most powerful energy practices, I believe, in the history of the human race. And specifically, what is most important to know about that, this practice here at the 90-Day Challenge is, I believe, one of the most helpful and essential practices to help us energetically merge into the 5D. Because my experience, even somebody that's been practicing, these high-level energy techniques my whole life, the energy that's been downloaded to me is beyond anything I've ever experienced. And so I'm having to really work to align myself. And so I can imagine somebody who hasn't done any of those practices, it becomes even more difficult. So it's absolutely essential that we get our nervous system, our chakra system, our dantians, our meridians. We need to get them vibrating on a much higher level so that we can make that shift. If you want to have a more intense, more powerful, more easy experience connecting to these light beings that will become an everyday experience for every person eventually, if you want to have that, this is probably, in my opinion anyway, I think the best, most powerful way to shift your energy level up. So go to thunderwizard.com, scroll around until you get to Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, and subscribe. It's the beginning of the month. Now's the time to do that. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. You have literally nothing to lose. We've got courses.thunderwizard.com. Those are all of my books, all of my teachings, all of my all of the video courses, all of my services, everything. If you really want to know absolutely everything that's available to you, all the services I have, go to courses.thunderwizard.com. If you want to have the access to the elite spirit fighting practices that, in my experience, are the most powerful practices human beings have ever come up with, you can go to maushan.thunderwizard.com. All right, now, I've given you plenty of time. Any questions? No questions. All right, I guess Jedi Black Knight didn't want to go deeper into his question. Am I wrong about that, Jedi Black Knight? No, okay. So are we done? I kind of have the feeling maybe he's trying to type it out. Coming up on Saturday the 6th, there is a global CE5 event. And that is, as I understand it, Dr. Stephen Greer, I don't know what you want to call it, the revealer of the CE5 protocols, which is human-initiated contact with extraterrestrials. He has called for a worldwide CE5 event on August 6th, which is this Saturday, from 9 p.m. to midnight in whatever your time zone is. So don't ask me what it would be in your time zone. It's the same wherever you are. Wherever you live, between 9 p.m. and midnight, he's inviting everybody around the world to do a CE5 event. So I am thinking about doing a live stream. Last time I did a live CE5 live stream, I fried some circuits and I was out of commission for at least 3 weeks. So I'm thinking of doing that again. I think I've fixed the problem. I think I've soldered the wires back together. I think I'm functional. So I'm thinking I probably will do another one. I know now I overdid it, so I won't overdo it this time. I will do my best to stay away from doing any of that for perhaps a few days. Anyway, again, I'm just filling time to give you guys an opportunity to write a question. Mystical Blood Matrix Reboot. Question. Have you reached jnana state? All right, so Mystical Blood Matrix Reboot, my experience of you, and I don't know you, so please forgive me, I'm doing my best. My experience of you is that you're new to the channel. Am I correct? So I would recommend that you watch more of my videos, because here is my definition of a question. A question, and I say this because what a lot of people do, and they don't mean to do it, but it's actually a passive-aggressive thing. It's an ego thing that most people do on chats, and I don't do that here. Again, I treat this like my classroom. So a question is, there's something that you want the answer to that you don't know the answer to, that you don't have an opinion on, that you think I might have an answer to, and so you honestly ask. Like if you don't know how to get to the 7-Eleven, at the center of town, you ask somebody, can you give me directions? Because you don't know. You wouldn't drive up to somebody, pull your window down and say, it's my belief that 7-Eleven is 2 blocks over and then left. And do you agree with that? See, that's not a question. And this is what I feel from your question. My take on you is you need to be teaching. Because if you're asking me a question and you want me to co-sign your opinion instead of actually not knowing the answer and wanting me to tell you, it means you need to be teaching. So you're wasting your energy. So I'll read your question again. Have you reached jnana state? This is when you no longer need to think to do. Everything is just present, infinite knowing, and the body just moves on its own no matter what, blah, 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 blah. It's a huge question. You obviously have the answer to it for yourself. Asking me that is like asking me, what kind of underarm deodorant I wear. It's really a comment about you. And I think it's awesome that you believe that you've reached that state. And I think you should take that and go teach. If, however, there's something that you really honestly don't know the answer to, and you'd like my take on it, I would be happy to help you. Now, why have I gone through, as I said, if you don't ask a question or share an honest feeling, there's a good chance I'm going to psychoanalyze you. Why am I doing that? I'm doing that because this is how you get the best reaction from these light beings. You want to have a powerful experience with them? You go to them with an honest question. Don't come with an opinion. Don't tell them what is this and what is that. And you go with an empty cup, not knowing anything. Because otherwise, I've worked with Chinese masters and Chinese ascended masters as well. Same scenario. If you walk into the dojo or walk into the, whatever the Chinese people call it, you walk into the studio, and if you do anything other than stand at attention and, if they're not telling you what to do, you ask, what should I do? If you have anything other than that, they ask you to leave, or they turn around and walk away. They won't even say anything. They'll just turn around and walk away. And the reason why they do that is because they can't teach you. They can't empower you. You walk in and you want to train with a traditional Tai Chi teacher, a traditional Qigong teacher, a traditional Kung Fu teacher. And you walk in the studio and you start saying anything like, I studied with so-and-so, and do you do this? He's just going to turn around and walk away from you. If you ask a question, like if he says, go stand in the corner on one leg, and you ask why, he will say, thank you, there's the door. And it's not because he's being a jerk. It's because he knows what, based on his experience, because he was where you are, and assuming that you treat him and see him as a teacher. If you go to him with anything other than just the open willingness to have him direct you and instruct you, he knows he can't teach you. And so he just won't even bother. So, if you're new to my channel, that's what I like. If you don't think I have anything of value to teach you, then by all means, you won't hurt my feelings if you go somewhere else. And if you have something of value to say it on your channel. And I mean that. Don't waste your time on, at least with me. Don't waste your time trying to, jockey for position. If you already know what I'm talking about, don't waste your time trying to show us that you know that. Go teach it. Go. You're younger than me. You probably have a view on life I don't have. You're the next teacher. You go teach your own thing. Write your own books. Make your own videos. I think everybody should be doing that if they have something they have knowledge in. So, Mystical Blood Matrix Reboot, I hope that didn't offend you. You're welcome on the channel. If you have an honest question about something you don't know and you think that I might have the answer, I'm happy to answer it. Otherwise, what I'm looking for is honest feelings. A feeling, again, people do the same thing when I say that. It's a passive-aggressive thing. It's a way of getting your opinion out. One of my favorite ones was somebody said, honest feeling. I really feel that Jesus is Lord. He said, that's not a feeling. That's an opinion. A feeling is, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm confused, I'm scared, I'm excited, I'm full of joy, I'm inspired, I'm confused. Those are feelings. That's the other thing. When you interact, now you can't do this with your basic traditional Chinese teacher. You can't go to them and start dumping your feelings on them. They're not going to want to hear that. They just want they want your silence and or your questions when they say, do you have a question? But these beings, in my experience, want to help you verbalize and become conscious of your feelings. That gives them an ability to merge more deeply into your energy body. So that's another reason I have people share your feelings, even if it's not associated with a question. Because I am sharing with you what I have found works for me to connect with these incredibly powerful teachers who now are going to take, I mean, there's not going to be any, I don't know when the date is going to be, if it's tomorrow or 10 years from now, but there's going to come a day when literally every single person on earth has a direct connection to beings of the fifth dimension. Every single child that is born, you won't have to educate them in church about a religion. They will know from the moment of birth. They will already be seeing and connecting on even a level greater than those of us that are from previous dimensions. You know, there are going to be kids that are going to be born seeing and experiencing fifth dimensional beings. It's just going to be common knowledge. I forgot what I was saying. Jedi Black Knight, question reframed. I tend to, quote, try too hard to silence the inner critic and concentrate harder. Perhaps I'm doing something counterproductive. So that's your assumption. So remember I sort of chastised you on this a while ago? This is the same question. You keep asking me the same question. You reframe it. I appreciate, I kind of knew that's where you were going, and I wanted you to own that. But there's an assumption you have that there's something wrong with the way that you think. I've never said that to you. Never once have I said, you know, Jedi Black Knight, I may have said things in the past about, you know, you're intellectualizing it, you're trying too hard. But in terms of this CE5 stuff, your judgment of yourself is operating from assumptions that nobody holds except you. So you're operating from an assumption that you have to silence your inner critic. I just got through saying that one of the things that will help you is to consciously speak your feelings. So if you're talking about doing CE5 work and you think your inner critic is too loud and you're trying to silence it, then yeah, you're the one cutting yourself off, but only because you're judging yourself. So you can't stop the inner critic. But what you can do is say, my friends, will you please help me? I feel like I'm doing it wrong. And when you do that, you'll get to the feeling underneath it. Because underneath all of that is a feeling of insecurity. It's a feeling of not being worthy, not being lovable. That's why you try too hard. You try really hard. You know, I know a little bit about you just from our interchanges on the chat. You know, like me, you're a perfectionist. And as you know, I have a very loud inner critic. I have a very loud inner voice in my head. And I am having more experiences than I know what to do with. So obviously, having a loud head and needing to verbalize things in my head and having a powerful inner critic definitely hasn't prevented me from having, you know, I mean, all the stuff I shared earlier. So there's no reason, from my perspective, that you can't have that. So stop trying to be something different than what you are. You're a guy who has a strong desire to improve and connect spiritually, and you happen to have a really loud head, and you happen to have a really loud inner critic. and you go to your friends and you say, I have all these things going on, and I'm afraid that I'm talking too much, and I'm afraid that I'm talking myself out of this, and I really want this, and then the other feelings will come up. And just do the work. Don't stop yourself. Do the meditation. Do the meditation. Imagine yourself going out into the universe. Imagine yourself saying to the universe, I'm here looking to connect with any light beings that would like to connect and interact with me. And if so, make yourself known. And if you can't feel anything, you say, I don't know if you're there, I can't feel you, but I'm going to assume you are, and I'm going to head back to Earth where my body is, and I invite you to come with me. They're not going to reject you for that. The only thing that and also don't judge the experience. If you want to do things like I did and get the radio, turn the radio on, the walkie-talkie, and say, if you're here, click the walkie-talkie, or you can broadcast through the walkie-talkie, the tones, which I found is really, again, just for our benefit. Because the first few times I did it, I didn't know they were there. They were. I just didn't know it. And so I thought I had to broadcast to them. And when I finally did it, they finally got the hint and they went, oh my God. And they, took over my radio. And then I went, oh my God, they're here. But now in hindsight, they were there the whole time. So Jedi Black Knight, they're already there. So go into meditation, talk to them as though they're there. I guarantee you, if you keep doing that, you're going to make progress. But your assumptions of you're trying too hard, your inner critic is too loud, all of those are your assumptions. Nobody else is holding that judgment on you but you. Okay? Anyway, I hope that was helpful. Vincent.thunderwizard.com, honest feeling. I'm feeling better today. Thanks for everything. You're very welcome. We had a session yesterday, and apparently that was helpful for you. So I'm glad. I'm glad you're feeling better. And it doesn't surprise me, Vincent. You're you're an inspiration for me, and you're an example. And I really appreciate your bravery and your commitment to yourself and your discipline. It really shows. And you show up. You show up for yourself every day, no matter what the difficulties, and I'm really happy to see that. Again, you're an inspiration. Timothy Zoll signed up for the 90-day. Welcome. You should have access to all the other videos as well. So again, thousands of hours of videos and teachings on there. I don't see any other questions here. So I guess that's it. I guess we're all done. Anyway, so that's it for me today. I had a beautiful experience. We'll see what happens when I go to sleep, because every time I have these, I don't even know what to call them. I don't really call them CE5, because for the most people, CE5 is, looking at binoculars for flying saucers. For me, it's a meditative experience. I go in my room, I close the door, I meditate, and I had a very interesting, beautiful, and unique experience today, which I'm not ready to talk about yet, but we'll see tonight. Usually when I do this at night when I dream, I have to go through an adjustment period. There's usually some part of my ego that dies, and when I wake up, I have a larger, more expansive understanding of the universe than I did when I went to bed. Again, August 6th, I am thinking about doing a live stream CE5. All right. Mystical Blood Reboot has a question. Yeah, so Mystical Blood Matrix, just again, looking at the first few sentences, please take what I say and log it in. I invite you to spend more time on my channel. So if you're new to the channel, here's what I recommend everybody do. First and foremost, find my YouTube channel page. Go and look for the playlists and look in the playlist to see if there are things that you want to learn about. The reason I'm saying this is because 99% of the time a new viewer, I've already answered their question hours long. I've answered that question in another video. The other thing that I recommend that people learn how to do if they don't know how to do it is when you're on somebody's YouTube channel page, depending on your device, find where you can find the place where you can search within the channel. So if on my desktop, my laptop, I would go to somebody's page and click on the magnifying glass, and then I can put in whatever. In this case, you could put in psychedelic, or you could put in cannabis, and you'd find all my videos on that. So you ask me, do you use psychedelic substances like cannabis? Again, you're asking me a question like, what underarm deodorant? And those aren't interesting questions to me. You're asking me that, I can already guess you do, right? So again, this isn't so much a question about me helping you learn something. You're feeling me out, and you're trying to figure out if I do the thing that you do. And my answer to that question is, what difference does it make? How does that help you? Unless you want to ask me questions about something you do, you probably know more about it than I do. But you say, first off, I don't consider cannabis a psychedelic. I have done my share of cannabis, and I don't anymore. And if you want to find out why I don't, you can go and type in and search on my channel for the videos that I've made about cannabis. Bottom line is that THC is incredibly destructive to your energy body. If you want to do energy work, it's probably the fastest way to deplete all of the energy out of your energy body. It also dulls your ability. It gives you the experience because all of your chi goes into your head blows up like a balloon, and you have these really deep thoughts, man, but you're really not having any real big thought. It's kind of like looking at everything under a microscope. You're not seeing the big picture. But it's also very, very toxic to your energy body. So I don't do that. I have, but I don't. Mushroom and peyote. I may talk about those other psychedelics in the future, but I'm not going to talk about them now. How often do I use them? So again, that's not a question I really want to address in this video. But you're welcome to go. I haven't made any videos about those substances, but I have made videos about cannabis. Let me just say before I go on, I do think there is a lot to be said for microdosing. I personally haven't done it because I don't need to. So again, Mystical Matrix Reboot, if you've done anything like this, the Maoshan, let me just say that's more powerful than any psychedelic you'll ever get your hands on. And the only way you would know that is if you do it. So if you're wanting me to talk about that, I'm not. But I will give you practices that I guarantee you will give you a more powerful direct experience and will release more DMT in your brain than any psychedelic can do over the long haul. Because even people who do psychedelics, and even if because I think for some people psychedelics used properly in the proper context can be very helpful. You still end up having to need to rebalance your body because you're forcing your body to shut down DMT production because you're ingesting it. And that is very hard on the pineal and the pituitary. But the ideal is you want your pineal to manufacture DMT on its own. And that can be done with regular disciplined practices. And when you do that, you won't need a psychedelic. It's psychedelics. You'll look down at psychedelics as being, oh, that's, it's like the difference between, a jet airplane and a, horse and buggy. They're not even in the same scenario. So you've just said a comment. I can see below. It's not a question. I don't know. I'm willing to bet you're going to kind of defend your statement. Let's see. You say no. You say thank you. The direction. Many divine blessings to you. There you go. So anyway, that's it. Welcome to the channel. I hope you find what you're looking for, but I wish you all the best, whatever you do. I don't see any other questions here. No other questions? All right, that's it. I'm sitting here, speaking of DMT, I'm sitting here with, I wish I could just kind of give everybody the amount of energy that I feel that's going through me. But that's all I have today. August 6th, live stream, CE5. And, I guess I just committed to it. So I guess I am doing a live stream CE5 on Saturday, the August 6th. I'm going to be doing a live stream no matter what, whether I do a CE5 or not, we'll find out. But there is a worldwide CE5 event being called for. If you want to look into that, all you have to do is Google CE5. There's no need for me to teach it to you. It's already out there on the web if you're not familiar with it. That's it for me, my friends. I wish you all the best. And I hope that you have a powerful experience yourselves with the conscious being known as, that I'm calling the quantum consciousness source. I hope that you can have that same kind of experience that I'm having. I wish you all the best. If you have a question that you'd like to put into any of the video comment sections, if I like the question, I will make a video on your question. That's it. Click on the links. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.